And let's get Teams back. There we go. So, okay. So starting with Power BI, I've got a few slides, and then we'll be straight into demo. So, Pane gave me quite a good introduction. So this is me. I'm active on Twitter. I've got a blog, Hatful of Data, and I'm an MVP for business apps. And I'm always up for a challenge. So do feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or on LinkedIn. So building a report in Power BI. I always put it down to 5 steps that you've got to go and get your data, get access to, and the larger the organization you're in, usually the more difficult it is. And then we go through transforming and modeling, which are all kind of making your data work out how it relates to each other, tidying it up, all those kind of things. And then there's the visualization, and then there is the final part, which is publishing it and sharing it with people. You can do steps 1 to 4 without any licensing. Okay. You only actually need a license in Power BI at the point at which you want to share a report. So all of this can be done without having to go and spend any money. You can download Power BI free of charge. And the point at which you do you do need to start sharing it. It's that there are various models out there, but basically it's about a tenner a month. But if you've got E5, I think it's included. But actually, when you come down to doing your things, if you switch this over to how much effort's involved, getting to your data is the hardest thing in the world usually. And in large organizations, it's horrific. In little organizations, when you know your admins, it's easy. Then we move on to transforming and modeling. And if you get those 2 steps right, the visualization and the publishing is really easy. So that's not what, do you know, if you press the wrong button in Power BI, you end up doing the wrong things. Not in Power BI, in PowerPoint. Let's do the thingy again, and let's do the next one. There we go. They turn red. So they're the ones that actually, if you get them right, or you get somebody else to get them right for you, that's the important parts to do. So, and that's where I spend a lot of my time. I'm actually not a very visual person. There are a lot of people who are a lot better at UX and UI than I am. So I quite often hand it over to somebody else at that point. But before you even start your report, you've got to actually work out a really simple question. Why are we bothering? What are we doing it for? Okay. So you've got to work out what questions they're answering. So I've got some really sensible questions, given that I'm working with Lego data, okay? And I haven't got any sales of Lego. It is just pure Lego data. Are there pink parrots? Really important question. What's the most popular color? What color gets used the most in sets? And how many grays do you really need? It's a joke in our house that there are 2 grays in Lego that are almost identical, and I'm in a house full of geeks, so they couldn't possibly mix them. And that slide is badly laid out, so let's move on. So our files today actually aren't Excel straight, they're CSV files, but there isn't a logo for CSV. And then we put them through Power Query, which does our transforming for us and tidying up, and then we're going to put them into Power BI. Okay. But for today, I think the next slide is demo. Yeah, next slide says demo. So for today, our data. I said there'd be homework, and there isn't really homework. What it is I've made a very short post. I will add more things to this post, I promise. But I've created a post here, which I'm hoping will load up, which gives you a link on the page. I should have loaded the page first. There's a link here to a OneDrive folder, okay? And in that OneDrive folder, you will find, and it's public, okay? So it's anyone can read this stuff. There are my data files from today, okay? I'm logged in, so therefore it's showing you a bit more, but you should be able to log on to those. And if somebody, I get sharing wrong every time. So if I put a link to this in the chat, can somebody do me the favor of making sure that I have got the sharing right and that you can get to it?
Check that.
Thank you, Paddy. And any references I refer to today in today's session, I will come back in here and I will update it. And once, and I'll put a link to any report, any recordings or anything like that that's available afterwards up on here. So, Power BI. Install Power BI from the store. Okay. From Microsoft Store is where I recommend you install it from, because the Power BI team update the Power BI desktop at the moment about 10 times a year. And if you do it from store, it will automatically update. If you download off their website, it won't. Okay, so you have to do that one manually. They've been doing it for a while. Power BI is the oldest member of the Power Platform family. So it's the big brother or big sister or whatever you want to put it. And regularly gets forgotten. As part of the Power Platform. Thanks. Okay. This yellow box that comes up has links in it. So it's got links to forums. It's got links to a wonderful post they do every time they do an update as to what's new, etc. And there's all sorts of guidance down here. Some of it a little bit outdated, but most of it's pretty good and the principles are superb. And the data community are fantastic. They all support you and help you as long as you ask good questions. So here we are in Power BI. The first part I said, the first step we had to do was get to our data. So there is a wonderful site called, oh, thank you, Pane. There is a wonderful site called Rebrickables. And Rebrickables is a site for the weird people that are obsessed with what numbers Lego bricks are. But they provide lots of data. So let me just go and show you the data we're gonna. So these are the files you can download. Okay. And here we go. Here are I've got colors. I've got inventory. I've got all sorts in here. We're going to start with colors just because it's pretty. Okay, and we're going to see how far we get. So I pick a file. I click open. It puts up a connection. If this file is stored on OneDrive or whatever, it'll ask you to log in. If you've taken the URL to it, and then it'll show you a copy of it. And look, there's lots and lots of colors. And we're then going to click. This is pretty clean. Okay, the data is pretty nice. So I'm going to just click load. And it goes away. And it's at the point which you press load that actually opens up the file. And it's applying changes. And according to how big a data set is according to how long this takes to load. And the colors is a nice short one. So I was thinking it's going to load really quickly. But hey, I have a reputation for breaking demos. Wow, it is taking longer than I expected. There we go. So when that loads up, 186 different colors of Lego. Who'd have thought it? When that loads up, it's you can go and see the data. So this is the report page. Up in the top left-hand corner here, we've got 3 buttons. So there's the report page. The next one down takes you to the data. And give it a moment. And there is all our data. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into our report and let's put in a list of our data. So we're going to, on the fields pane on the right hand side here, you'll see there's our fields. And if I just tick next to name, it will create a table for me. Hey, I even rebooted before we started this thing. There we go. And there is a list of all the colors sorted. Okay. And so what we're next going to do is what's I next going to do? So let's bring in some of our other parts, some of the other things we've got, and then we'll talk about relationships. Okay, so I'm going to just go and quickly do a get data, and I'm just going to go and fetch those files, fetch the other files in. So we're going to bring in parts. So just while I'm loading all these ones, how many people have never created a Power BI report? Pop a comment in the chat.
I've only done them from within just for dynamics reports. I've not done one for a good while now, maybe about 2 years. But I had a project come on and it needed some Power BI embedded within Dynamics looking at sales data, and it was it's about 3 months solid writing Power BI reports. I was new to it as well, so I've kind of struggled through it, and I got it, and then I haven't touched it for a while. I haven't touched it since. So the 3 month intense learning curve, and then that was it. And it was only with Dynamics data, so I haven't used any other data with it as well.
Dynamics data has the advantage that it can be well structured data. The disadvantage of that I've got is I wanted it so that other people could actually have a go if they wanted to. So all I'm doing, by the way, is pressing load on all these files. I've also got a couple of grids in the pie chart. Does that count? Yeah, that counts, Ivan. That definitely counts. The inventory parts is probably my biggest one because it's how I link all the data together.
Drake's played around as well.
Yep, cool. I'm always fascinated at how many people say that they do Power Platform stuff, and then they go, but no, I don't do Power BI. But that's the fun one. I don't do Dynamics. Okay, well, I don't do Dynamics yet. I have a feeling that's going to change. What have I done? I've done colors, inventory parts, and parts. I've done parts. That's good. Let's do.
So Tyler's used some Power BI before. In the chat.
Hey, Tyler, I like Power BI more than any other. Yeah, I am the same, Tyler. I've done more Power BI than any of the other ones. And my background is Excel, so I use Power Query in Excel. What
was it that came first then, Laura? Was it Power Query and then Power BI?
Yeah, Power Query came first, and then they had this thing called Power View, which basically was a Power BI but inside Excel, and it was horrible. It was really horrible. I'm bringing that one. That's it, I think. And that was you could do the kind of Power BI things in there, but it was limited. That's good. There's some people here that have had a go and had a play. There's some really good Microsoft have built lots and lots of stuff that's out there that are with videos galore. And those of you that use the likes of Shane Young for Power Apps and stuff, the equivalent for Power BI is GynaCube. GynaCube are two guys who actually work for Microsoft, but Microsoft don't pay them to do GynaCube. They do it. I ignore those. That's a lot of errors. We'll press close and we'll ignore it for a second. Okay. So I've brought in some tables. Okay, I've brought in 4 tables. I've shown you some colors. We can bring in some data. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the modeling. And inside our modeling, oh look, it's inside our modeling. It's stupidly put them all on top of each other. I've never seen it do that before. So I talked about Power BI had some updates. Okay, there are one of the changes is how this page looks, and at the moment it's in preview. So therefore they warn you about doing the upgrade. So upgrade now, but you might as well, because hey, sooner or later it's going to become compulsory. And it's all gone white, and they've changed these little icons here. So we've got, when people talk about data, they quite often talk about the fact table and the dimensions. So the fact table is normally the one that's got like the transactions or the things that are happening. And in this case, it's our inventory parts, which connects all the others together. Okay. And then the tables on the outside are quite often referred to as the dimensions. So I've got a color ID there, and that color ID, I'm going to link to the ID in the colors table. Okay. And then on the inventories, I've got a inventory ID, so I'm going to link that one back up to my inventories. Okay, so we've got all of our parts there, all of our bits there, and that is what's referred to as a star diagram. Okay, one table in the middle and tables hanging off the edge, and that's what they always aim for. That's always seen as the good part. Okay, but what we're going to do is we're going to start by doing some colouring, because hey, we've got a list of colours, but I'd actually like to know what those colours are. So what we're going to do is I want to be able to do some conditional formatting. Let's start with that as an idea. So if I had a color, I could do that. And we're going to have a look. And if we look here, I've got a RGB column, and that is the color in hex. But when you refer to the color in hex inside in web things, they usually put a hash at the front of it. So what I need is that column to have a hash at the front so I can use it. You could do it in here. I could do you a calculated column in here, but that means it would have to get calculated every time somebody opened this report. I want it only to be calculated when we initially load the data. So, or a refresh. So in order to change that, we're going to go and have a look at Power Query. So I've gone to the home ribbon. I'm going to click on Transform Data. And it'll take us into Power Query. And this is the tool.
Chris has got a question, Laura. Can Power BI recognise existing relationships if the data is from a single source? SQL /D365, etc.
It's pretty good at doing that. Most of the time, it does it correctly. There are the odd times it's not 100% worked, but if I'm bringing something in from a SQL Server, and it normally gets it. SQL Server, it does actually gets it right, because that relationship can come straight from the database. Dynamics, I don't know if it gets it 100% right. But in other places, it sometimes has to guess, but it actually is pretty good at it. Okay. Actually, that's a good question to confirm. I will confirm that as to whether it guesses it or whether actually it pulls it through. I'll have to ask somebody about that. I'm trying to think of who to ask at the moment. I will come up with somebody to ask. One of the Alexes in Microsoft will give that question to me. So here I am in Power Query. Okay, and I'm not going to spend too long in here because I don't want to do too long a session for you guys. But I could spend hours and hours in here explaining things to you. In here, what it does is it has a set of instructions over here on the right hand side that are referred to as the applied steps. So this is let's start with the source data. Let's then promote all the first row to be the column headings, and then let's just do some changing some data types just to make sure they've got everything right. Okay, But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a hash on the front of this one. So I highlight the column, I go to the transform ribbon, and I'm going to go to the format and add a prefix. And the prefix I'm going to add in is a hash. And I'm going to click OK. Okay, so there we are. It's just done it. And if you look here, it's added a step. I have the formula bar showing. It's not usually showing by default. There's a formula bar up there. Okay, and there's all sorts of things you can do in Power Query. It is incredibly powerful. I have replaced half the VBA I've ever written with Power Query. So I go back onto the home ribbon and I do close and apply. Power Query will do things like unpivot data, all sorts of things. It's where you sort out your unstructured data. So if you're not coming from SQL Server, it's so when I have to do tidying up of Excel files and they want to put them in a pretty report. And Ivan, you are right. GynaCube are awesome. They've been my sanity during lockdown because they do a Saturday live. They do a 1 hour. They'll take questions. So there we are. We've got that in there. Let's see if we can do some coloring now. So here's my table. Okay, and I'm going to put into there formatting, and there is condition. So there's all sorts of things you can do with formatting. Have a play. There's conditional formatting. I'm going to go for the background of the name. And it will then, as soon as you turn that on, it will hopefully, wow, my PC is just not playing ball today. It will give me a dialog box to talk about, and it'll give you ideas of what you could do. So there's a color scale. Well, I don't want the color scale. I want to go for a field value because we've got a color value, okay, based on field and my field. And there's always searches for fields because they're expecting you to have models that have hundreds of columns. So there's RGB, and I'm going to click OK. And there we are. We've got colors. Okay. So let's look at another trick we could do. Yeah, I realize there are some issues there about some are unreadable, but we'll think about that. Okay, another trick I want to show you is we've got a list of parts. Okay, so I am going to, in the parts, I'm going to do on a table of parts. And if we get time, I'll do the picture version. If not, you'll have to wait for a video. I'll do it as a video because I worked out how to get pictures of the parts, which was quite pretty. So I've got a list of parts here, okay, and we'll do a link between these two in a minute. We'll talk about that, but what I want to do next is I want to be able to do a search on this list. So there isn't any good search boxes up here, text searches. So one really nice thing to do is go and get some more visuals. So click the 3 dots, get more visuals. And I am searching for a text search. And there's a text filter. So I'm going to click in my text filter. And it'll think about it for a minute. And there you are, it's just imported it. And it appears over here in the visualizations pane. And there's my text. So I can bring that in. Okay, let's make it a little bit taller. And what I'm going to do, and it asks you what field do you want to search? Well, I want to search the name of my part. So if I wait for that to just load up, there we go. So now I can put into here. So let's say I want to search for a wheel. And you have to press return. That's the bit I always forget. And there we are. We've got anything that's got wheels in them. Okay. Or let's go for is there a grumpy face? I can never remember if this is the one that I can do with grumpy. There we are, see? We've got grumpy. Right? Okay, so we can look for things, we can search for things through there. But one of my questions was, is there a pink parrot? Okay, so I can do search for parrot. And sure enough, there is parrot. Okay, in fact, there's a whole set of parrots. But if I click on parrot there, it doesn't do anything to my colours over here. They flashed, but actually there are not that many different coloured parrots. I know there aren't. So that's not filtering that. And that's what Power BI is known for, is that you can click on one thing and it filters other things. That doesn't work. Hi, Matthew. Yeah, I know Power Query is one of your favourite things. It's mine too. But today we have to behave and not do it all in Power Query. So I need to link these two. Okay, and I realised this is an introduction course and I should have made the data all easy and clean and everything, but this is something I end up teaching everybody all the time. So I decided to include it. You come back into here, okay? I filtered a part, so I was filtering that table. And if you look, there's a line here that's got a little arrow on it towards this table. That means it filters this one. Okay, the arrow is the direction filters can go. But then if you look, to then go and filter the colours, it's going against an arrow. So that's not going to work. But if I said only show me colours, so if I filtered this middle table, if I said only show me colours that have still got a part, that would be fine. Okay, bear with me on this one, guys. But this is a really simple, easy trick. If you've got a diagram like this and you filter this side and you want it to filter that side, this is how you do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our report and we are going to create what's called a measure, which is a calculation. And it will bring up a formula bar at the top. Now, this formula is written in a language called DAX, which is based off Excel, but of course it's not quite the same as Excel because, hey, Microsoft do love their different languages. So I'm just doing a zoom in because, hey, I'm blind and reading other people's screens is really hard work. So we're going to do kaput, different way of spelling count. Rows, whatever your fact in the middle is, okay, whatever you're going to call it. So I haven't got a good name for it, so we're going with count fact rows. And I'm just going to put into there a formula. Now for counting, this is based off Excel. So there we are, there's count. So double click on count, and then it shows you all the things that you could count. Okay, you very rarely actually have to type anything in Power BI. So here's my inventory parts, and I'm going to go for my inventory ID. You just pick a column that you know is going to have something in it. Okay. Let's give that a moment to think about life. So what we're going to do, okay, is I want this table here to only show me columns, only show me colours that have related inventory parts. So that when the middle table gets filtered, the colours get filtered too. So if I'm looking for what that measure was, okay, and I end up creating way too many measures, so I can never find them. There you are. There we can see it by searching for count. So just remember what you call them. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this filter pane here, and I'm going to drag that count into that filters on this visual. And I want it where the count is greater than, oh, not is less than, Laura, is greater than or equal to 1. Okay, so we put the filter in, and we're going to do an apply. And there we are, but you see the colours changed. And if I then go and click on my parrot, there you are, we've got our colours have filtered down. Okay, so we've managed to go, the arrow no longer is a problem. So the other way round, we want to be able to pick a colour. So there's my pink. And I want it to filter my parts. Well, that's not quite right. That's not quite working at the minute. Okay. So that what I need to do is I need to do exactly the same thing to this table. This table here, I click it again, and I'm going to drag in that count fact rows, put it into there, and go is greater than or equal to 1. And let's click apply filter. Okay, so I can now click on parrot, and there you are. There are the colors you can get in a parrot. Let's go and look at the Duplo version of a parrot, and there's the colors. I can do it the other way round. I can pick let's go for coral, and it will filter this one. It just takes a moment to load, and there you are. We can get a coral parrot. Okay, so the colors that are associated with, so there's my medium blue, and it will filter that. How are we doing?
Quick question. Can you just explain how that measure is created again, and how you can use that filtering kind of?
So say that again. Let's go back to the measure.
So how you created the measure essentially, and how that's it. Yeah. How's that working? Okay. How are you able to use a single DAX query, to impact the two tables essentially?
So let me go back. So this is counting the rows basically in the inventory parts. Yeah. So let me go back to my relationships just for a second. If I filter my parts by clicking on one, that filters my parts. That filter goes down the line and will filter my inventory parts. Okay.
Okay, got it. So when you filter one part, it filters down that arrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's it.
So I'm just going to go and there's that measure again. I'm just going to go back up again. Okay. Is DAX the same as PowerFX? Okay. Let me just do a quick explanation of PowerFX as I understand it. Okay, please somebody correct me if I am wrong. For those of you who know Power Apps, the language you are using inside Power Apps to do all the clever things inside Power Apps that nobody had a name for, we just called it the Cody stuff, is called PowerFX. They are intending for PowerFX to be used more in the likes of Power Automate, I think is the next one that's seen that's where it's going, etc. DAX is unlikely to get changed in any form because it's doing a lot of complicated things. It would make PowerFX too complicated. So no, DAX is not a DAX is not the same as PowerFX. If you're wanting to understand DAX, the Italians, Marco and Alberto, are the experts. Microsoft say they're the experts. And no, they don't work for Microsoft. And they have fantastic videos on their website called SQLBI. I will pop a link in the chat in a sec. Okay. Are you okay with that measure, Tyler? Is that all right?
Yep, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So, okay, I could get lost for weeks, etc. in here. And I'm going to not spend too much longer on here because I realize I'm doing too many things. But I just want to show you a couple of other tricks that make sense in here. You build a report. Okay, you built a report. Especially if you're a geeky person like me who's quite happy to play with data, but hey, this layout thing is a bit hard work. So there is a wonderful guy, and I will update my blog post to include the link to his website called Alluring BI, which is Chris Hamill. He's got a lovely site, but one of his hints is make pictures to do your backdrops. Okay, so my back screen, if I go, so I've got no visual selected, and I click on this paint roller, which is the formatting and all these things, and there is a page background. I can go and add an image, and look, I made a Lego background, and then click open. And you think, well, it hasn't done anything because for some weird reason, the default is it's totally transparent. And the other weird default is that the image fit is normal, so that doesn't really help. But if I go to fit, there you are. Let me click so I'm not on a measure. So the formula bar will vanish as well. There we are. We've got ourselves a we've got ourselves a background that we can fit things to. And Chris has some really good examples and some really simple layouts that can change the report from looking quite boring to looking quite good. Okay. I can then do things like, so let's go into, let's put in a card onto this report. Okay, and cards are usually to show a single number. Okay, so I'm going to put into there, I've got parts, I've got a part number. So I'm just going to drag part number. I can either drag or I can tick. And it's showing the first one. Well, I don't really want the first one. I want, and if I drop the arrow down here, I can go to count. There we are, we've got 17 parrots. Well, if I go and click the little picture of an eraser, there you are, that's how many different Lego parts there are. But if I go and pick a color, you can see how many, there can't be that many of that color. This one here again needs to be filtered in exactly the same way as the other things that are being filtered. So I'm just going to go and bring in that count. Is greater than or equal to. So my piece of, well, I'm just convincing this thing to actually let me do what I want it to do. My actual piece of advice with doing Power BI is know what you expect the numbers to be. So I knew how many roughly the parts there are. So know what you expect your numbers to be. So when you test it, you can actually work out whether you're getting the right things or not. And it's really not going to let me do what I want to do. Why is that just not play? That is not playing ball. I have no idea what I'm doing wrong on there. My apologies. But what I can also do, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the field I've got in there because that makes more sense. I'm going to take out that field. And in inventory parts, if we go and have a look in inventory parts, I have got in there a part number. So I can drag that across. And I can go for count distinct. That'll tell me how many different parts there are. So there we are. In that bright light orange, you've got 693 different kinds of parts. Okay. Tyler, there would be other ways that I could probably do it to the whole page. But there are also other ways of other measures I could have put in there to do what I wanted to do. Okay, but I don't want to get too complicated today. Okay. The other thing I can do in here is how many. So if we're looking for really simple things like looking at how many of the colors are transparent. Okay, so I could bring in a pie chart, and I could bring in a count of my colors. So let's bring in the ID to be my values, and I could bring in the is transparent to be my legend. So, and you could do some things in here to make it a little bit easy, a little bit more friendly to read. I am really not having a good day of arranging things today. So if you ever get to this point where you're being driven nuts by trying to arrange things on a page, you can hide things. There is a selection pane. I'm getting really close to using it. There is a selection pane. Layout in Power BI is not the friendliest thing in the world. They are working on it. It's one of the things, but I can bring into selection pane here, and there's all my things. So I can actually turn around and say, do you know what, that table there is getting in my way, so I'm just going to hide it for a minute. Maybe. And I brought it back again. Of course, I clicked on it twice. Okay, so I could then turn around and say, well, that means I can now go and do my other things I want to do, such as moving this pie chart. My laptop is just not liking me today. My apologies, guys. So there we are. I would probably change that text to say transparent and opaque. Okay, so I'd have transparent for the dark blue, and then you can see. So that's a really simple little pie chart. I can then bring back in my table. Of course, is in completely the wrong place. When it comes to we can do things in Power BI. So sticky pie, yeah, totally sticky pie. It's an apple pie. It's sticky. So I could if you've got, so obviously our colors we've got down here have been set by the color that's there. But when it comes to charts and things like that, on the view ribbon here, we've got a whole lot of themes. Okay, so we could change the themes to be a different set of colors. There we are, some reddy pinky colors, or we could change it to be all sorts of other things in there. You can also customize your themes to match your branding of your company. I highly recommend it because hey, they like it. They've paid a fortune for their brand to be designed. They like people using it. My report needs a title, so on my insert ribbon, I could bring in a text box. And so all I'd recommend on text boxes is set your font size at the beginning because it's easier. My Lego report, and fonts are part of themes as well. Okay. And the other thing that I quite often do for things like text boxes and things is I go into the formatting of my text box. I quite often will turn backgrounds off so that you don't have to worry about them looking a bit out of line, etc. but work out what's going to look right for you guys. Any more questions? Okay. Once you've got a report done, and if you wanted to share it in your business, this is where you need a license. So, and you need to log in. Okay. And when I've saved, so I'm going to save it. I am going to save it. So I'm saving it into, I'm going to call it the live demo, the Lego demo that's in there. And by the way, this is the OneDrive folder that you guys have got access to. Obviously my files aren't going to be pointing quite, you're going to have to go and sort out the files, but let me see what I can do about that for you guys and see if I can put it so that they will work themselves out. Because I haven't got the local versions. But once you've saved your file, you can then publish it. So I can then go publish up to Power BI. But this is where you need a license. So I can pick a workspace. Without a license, you can publish it to what's called My Workspace, but you can't share that report with anybody. Thank you, Paddy, for putting the link up. And then if I click on there, I haven't got it open. It will open up, hopefully, in my right version of Edge. Up into Power BI. And Power BI reports can be pinned as a tab inside Teams. They can also be, there's all sorts of things of embedding Power BI reports into other places. They can be embedded into a Power App if you're feeling very brave. The reason I say very brave is as I seem to break that quite often. And if it is totally public data, you can share it public. So one of the things I'll do is I will tidy up this report a little bit, but then I will share it public, and I'll put a link to it in the post. Okay, so there is our report, and up here in the service, someone can click, and it will go away, and it will work. Okay. Any questions?
You mentioned that there's a certain license. I think you said it earlier. E2 license. Is there a specific license that you need for you to be able to publish it? For
so publishing, you need to have a pro license. Okay. And a pro license, I think, is about $10 a month. Or you need to have an E5 M365 license.
Thank you.
That includes Power BI. Okay. But if you're just learning Power BI, you don't have to have it at all. You only need it for this last little bit that we've just done. Does data in Power, okay. Going to the question, does data in Power BI visuals automatically keep in sync? Right, okay, so if I go back into the workspace, so once I've published a report, I'm just trying to think of one that will work. This will work on. So there's my live demo. Okay, there you can see the little eyelashes on it to show that it's newly been done. I can't set this one to refresh automatically at the moment because my data is stored on my hard drive. Okay, if you have connected data to not be on the hard drive, you can set a refresh. And so I am literally just I'm gonna change my view for a second to be lineage, and lineage will show me where the data is being stored for these ones. Okay, so you can see the ones here of where they are, where they're going and getting data and when it has refreshed. Okay, I'm trying to find the one that I've just done and see if I can show you that it can't refresh. I can't see it because there's my live demo. It's not going to show me it can't refresh. Let's see if so I think if I go and do refresh now, I think it's going to fail because it's local files. And you see, I get a little red thing there that says it can't refresh. But I think my pop report can. Oh no, that one can't either. Which one can I do it on? I must have set one of these up to be refreshing so it works. Wow, I am not doing well here. What have I got? Most of these are my demos that all right, okay, that one there, that'll do. So my T report. So I do once a month. I do. Oh, that's gonna fail on me as well. Once a month, I do a report for. I do a session for the reactor, and that's what I'm normally looking for. And what I'm looking for is one that I can refresh that's going to work for me. But when you have one that will thing on my 3 dots here, there is settings. Okay, and in my settings, that one did refresh. That's good. In settings, what you can do is you can put up a scheduled refresh. And so you can decide how often you want it to refresh and at what time of day do you want it to refresh. With a pro license, you can refresh 8 times a day. If you go for a premium per user license, which is $20 a month, you can refresh 48 times a day. So going down the questions, if you give the highest to high level differences between Power BI Desktop and Power BI Service, how would you describe the differences between them? So you can do changes in Power BI Service. So let me just go and show you a report. Let's go back to the other. So that lineage view didn't really show me what I wanted it to show, but never mind. Let me go back to our live. So if I show the report here, okay. I can do some changes in here, but what I can't do very easily. So if I come into here and I go, click on the edit button. And on the edit button there, I can go and I can move things. I can add some visuals. There are the panes that come up just the same as before. But there's a lot more limited in what I can do in inserting and creating bookmarks and things like that. So Power BI Service allows you to create a simple report, but Power BI Desktop gives you a lot more tools. Microsoft I've given out hints to a variety of times, and this is all public, that they would like the online service to be getting close to the desktop service, but they've got a long way to go because there are things that aren't quite there yet. That they're almost there, but they're not quite there. A bit like if those of you that have used Excel Online, and Excel Desktop, they're getting closer and closer, but it's the same similar kind of thing. Do you have any resources for showing appealing reports? Chris Hamill, Alluring BI is fantastic. It's making it look great. He's got some really good simple ideas. If you like going for complicated stuff, Miguel, I'm going to remember his surname in a minute. I can't remember it at the moment. Who also works for Microsoft, and he does amazing stuff, but it's complicated. It's Chris Hamill actually does some really nice, simple, easy stuff. I found that so Tyler's comment on scheduled refresh. Yeah, they are pretty intuitive. I totally agree, and it does depend where the data is. So if the Power BI service can get to your data, it can refresh. So your Excel file, these CSV files, if I was doing this for a client, I'd make sure the CSV files were stored somewhere like SharePoint that the service could still get to. So SharePoint Online, let's clarify that one, or somewhere else. Or if your data can't be got to in that regard, so you've got an in-house database, then you can use gateways, and that can make in-house data available, on-premises data available to the Power BI service. But there are license costs. I don't know what those are. Okay. Where is the reporting data in the workspace stored, and is there a limit? Yes, there is a limit, and I'm trying to remember what the gigabyte limit is. I think it might be 5 or 10 gigabyte limit for a single data set. If you are on Pro, there are limits. I'm not totally sure what the limits are, but there's limits to the size of your report. So one of the really important things to be aware of is if you have columns you don't use, go back into your Power Query and remove them. Okay, so they don't come through into the model, because that will keep your model size smaller. Can you share? I think hopefully that answers Chris's question. Craig's question: can you share reports using both service and desktop? Sharing a desktop, you'd have to share the PBIX file, and so therefore the people would have to open it up in desktop, and let's be honest, it's not the most friendly thing in the world. Okay. Coming back to the comment about keeping things small, if let's go for parts, I'm not referring to the category, what I would do here is don't do remove columns. That button should be banned. Please do choose columns. I'll explain my reasons in a second. And when choose columns comes up, it gives you a list of the what columns would you like. So untick the ones you don't want. The reason I say go for that version of it is there's a cogwheel. So should you decide you now want it, you can get, or you want different columns removed, such as I don't care about the part material, I can click on the cogwheel and I can say I don't want part material anymore. Okay, so that's a really good way of doing it. If you do delete columns, you get a statement you can't edit. One thing to be aware of in Power Query, I go and do something like remove a step. So I click on the little cross, it's gone. There is no undo. So you make a mistake, it's gone. Okay, so please be careful. Miguel Marti, thank you very much, Matthew. That is the guy. He does some amazing work and some very beautiful reports. And that there are a number of people out there. Microsoft also have, I think, some galleries, as well as some really very pretty reports. Nick ideas that are out there. I am not a layout person, as I think I've just proven, because I did a report that wasn't the prettiest thing in the world. But if you've got ideas and things to go out there, I would start with Chris Hammer and work from there. And Miguel has got some really nice ideas, some of which I've nicked in the past. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Going back to my slides just for a second. The guy in a cube, that's Patrick, you can see in there, and Adam, who's the boss of Guy in the Cube. SQL BI, I refer to as the Italians, Marco and Alberto. I've only bought 2 techie books in about the last 5-10 years, and ooh, that's not showing particularly well. But DAX Patterns and the Definitive Guide to DAX are the 2 books I've bought, because DAX changes a little bit, but not very much. I've gone on way too long. Sorry, Paddy.
That's okay, Laura. As I said, we're quite a casual bunch, so it's captivating as well. It's brilliant. Learn loads. Fantastic.
And if you've got any questions, guys, do reach out. If I haven't done a video about it, if I know the guy in the cubes has done a video about it, I will always post back to you guys and say where it is. Okay.
No, that's absolutely fantastic, Laura. It makes me want to pick up her BI again. It's one of the things that I really want, because I'm working with bigger projects now as well. So it's inevitable that it'll come up again, and now at least I know where to start.
Yeah, no, it's a cool product, and I'm always interested to hear how people are using it. So do reach out and say hi, and I can point you in the right directions.
That is brilliant. Has anybody else got any more questions before we drop off? Loads of thank yous coming in.
For anybody that's heard of paginated reports, on the 12th of April, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm doing a session for the reactor. I'm also doing a session on Thursday. Yeah, I'm doing a session on Thursday. I can't remember who for. That's bad, isn't it?
Did you see you did a session for Reactor every Saturday? Laura?
No. So Guy in a Cube do a 1 hour live every Saturday. I do a session for the Reactor about once a month.
Oh,
and
brilliant.
it normally is Power BI introduction, and I come up with a different data set every time. I've done about 8 of them now. The next one is on the 12th of April. We're doing paginated. I thought because premium per user now makes paginated not too expensive. It used to be minimum 5K a month. Now it's $20 a month, which is quite a big change.
So do you think the paginated report, and that's potentially going to, do you think that's SSRS reports on the way out then, with paginated reporting's coming in? Because that's really the only time you ever need to use SSRS, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I've never used SSRS, but it is. Yes, it is. That is the stalwarts of SSRS have kind of like no longer got a reason to keep on to it. Apart from the fact that if all your data is in-house, you aren't going onto the cloud, why would you go there at all? But I think it's going.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've used SSRS, paginated apparently is pretty much the same. I don't know. I've never used it, so I just done paginated.